I stood in front of the full-length mirror in my modest apartment, smoothing down the emerald green dress I'd splurged on for Vanessa's engagement party. The fabric clung to my curves in all the right places, and for once, I felt beautiful. I, Naomi Patel, the perpetual wallflower, was actually excited to attend a social gathering. My stepsister Vanessa had always been the golden child. Perfect grades, perfect job, perfect fiancé. Meanwhile, I was the disappointment, the one who changed majors 3 times before settling on graphic design, the one who was still single at 32, the one my stepmother introduced as Vanessa's stepsister, rather than by my name. But tonight was going to be different. I'd just landed a big freelance project that could finally launch my career. I had a new haircut, a new dress, and a newfound confidence that I hoped would shield me from the usual barrage of backhanded compliments from Vanessa and her circle. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I arrived at the venue, an upscale rooftop restaurant downtown, 15 minutes late. Not late enough to be rude, but late enough to avoid the awkward small talk with relatives who always asked why I wasn't married yet. The hostess directed me to the private section where champagne was flowing freely and laughter echoed against the city skyline. "Naomi, you actually made it!" Vanessa's voice carried across the room. She glided toward me in a white designer dress that probably cost more than my rent, her diamond engagement ring catching the light with every graceful movement of her hand. "Wouldn't miss it," I said, forcing a smile as she air-kissed both my cheeks. "Congratulations again. Thank you. Everyone who matters is here tonight." She emphasized the word matters in a way that made me question if I was included in that category. "Come, you have to meet Marcus's colleagues. They're absolutely fascinating people." I followed her through the crowd, nodding politely at familiar faces. My stepmother gave me a once-over, her expression a mixture of surprise and reluctant approval at my appearance. My father, ever oblivious to the tension, simply waved from across the room where he was deep in conversation with Marcus's. Father Vanessa led me to a group of well-dressed professionals, all holding crystal champagne flutes and exuding an air of success that made me instinctively straighten my posture. "Everyone, this is my stepsister," Vanessa said, and my heart sank at the omission of my name. "She does... what was it again? Computer drawings?" "Graphic design," I corrected gently. "I actually just signed a contract with—" "Oh, that's right," Vanessa interrupted. "Nothing as impressive as what you all do, of course. Marcus's team is handling the Richardson merger. It's all over the financial news." The group nodded politely at me before returning to their conversation about stocks and acquisitions. I stood there, clutching my champagne flute, feeling increasingly invisible as the minutes ticked by. I excused myself and headed to the bar for a refill, hoping to find at least one person I could have a genuine conversation with. That's when I overheard Vanessa's voice from behind a decorative plant. "I know, it's so sad. She shows up in that off-the-rack dress thinking she looks good. I invited her because Dad insisted, but honestly, she just doesn't fit in with our crowd." My cheeks burned as I realized she was talking about me. I was about to walk away when I heard Marcus join in. "Your sister's not that bad, babe. A bit boring, maybe, but harmless." "Stepsister," Vanessa corrected sharply. "And you don't have to. Be nice. She's always been jealous of me. Did you see how she's trying to copy my hairstyle? It's pathetic, really." I touched my freshly cut bob self-consciously. It looked nothing like Vanessa's long blonde waves, but her words still stung. "I just hope she doesn't try to talk to Mr. Blackwood about her little doodles. Can you imagine? The CEO of Horizon Investments hearing about cartoon logos or whatever. It is... she does." My stomach dropped. James Blackwood, the notoriously hard-to-impress CEO of one of the biggest investment firms in the country, was here? And Vanessa was worried I would embarrass her in front of him? "Speaking of," Marcus lowered, His voice. He just texted. He's running late, but should be here any minute. Are you sure we should have invited him? He's not exactly the life of the party. Of course we should have. Do you want that promotion or not? Besides, he's only staying for a short while to make an appearance. He knows everyone who matters in this city. There was that word again. Matters. And according to Vanessa, I clearly didn't. I abandoned my plan for another drink and headed for the bathroom, needing a moment to compose myself. As I pushed open the door, I collided with a tall figure in a perfectly tailored suit. "I'm so sorry," I stammered, mortified when I realized I'd spilled a drop of champagne on his sleeve. "No harm done," he replied, his voice deep and measured. He looked to be in his mid-40s, with salt and pepper hair and piercing blue eyes. That seemed to take in everything about me in one glance. I fumbled in my clutch for a tissue. "Please, let me at least try to—" "It's just a drop," he said, his expression softening slightly. Besides, I've had much worse spilled on me at these events. Something about his calm demeanor made me relax slightly. "Not a fan of engagement?" "Parties? Not particularly, but business demands certain social obligations." He extended his hand. "James Blackwood." My heart stopped. This was the CEO Vanessa had just been warning Marcus about. The man they were so desperate to impress was standing in front of me, and I'd just spilled champagne on him. "Naomi Patel," I managed, shaking his hand. "I'm the bride's stepsister, I presume?" he asked. And for a terrible moment, I thought he'd somehow overheard Vanessa's cruel comments. "How did you know?" "You have the look of someone who'd rather be anywhere else," he said with the ghost of a smile. "I recognize it well." Before I could respond, Vanessa's voice rang out behind me. "Mr. Blackwood, you made it." She swept past me as if I were invisible, air-kissing both his cheeks. "I see you've met my stepsister." Again, no name. "Yes, we were just getting acquainted," Mr. Blackwood said, his expression unreadable. "Well, let me introduce you to the people you really need to meet," Vanessa said, taking his arm and steering him away. Over her shoulder, she mouthed to me, "Don't embarrass me." I stood there, humiliated once again, watching as she paraded him around like a trophy. The confidence I'd felt earlier evaporated, replaced by the familiar feeling of inadequacy that always surfaced around Vanessa. I made my way to a quiet corner of the rooftop, contemplating how soon I could leave without seeming rude. The city lights twinkled below, oblivious to my small human drama playing out above them. Not enjoying the festivities? I turned to find James Blackwood standing beside me, 2 fresh glasses of champagne in hand. He offered one to me. I thought, "You were meeting the people who matter," I said, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice as I accepted the drink. I excused myself. Too many people asking for investment advice or trying to pitch their startups. He leaned against the railing. "Your stepsister seems enthusiastic." I laughed despite myself. "That's one word for it." "She mentioned you work in graphic design?" I was surprised Vanessa had mentioned me at all. "Yes, I do. I actually just signed a contract with Lunar Media for their rebranding." His eyebrows rose, slightly. "Impressive. They're notoriously selective." "You know Lunar Media?" "I make it my business to know all significant players in various industries," he said simply. "Their CEO, Rebecca Moon, sits on a charity board with me." I was about to respond when Vanessa's voice cut through our conversation like a knife. "There you are, Mr. Blackwood. We're about to make the toast." Her eyes darted between us, clearly trying to assess what we'd been discussing. "Naomi, Mom's looking for you. Something about helping with the dessert table." I knew for a fact that my stepmother would rather die than ask for my help with anything, but I recognized the dismissal for what it was. "Of course," I said, moving to leave. "Actually," Mr. Blackwood said, surprising both of us, "I was hoping Ms. Patel might continue our conversation about the creative direction of Lunar Media's rebranding." It's quite relevant to a project Horizon is considering. Vanessa's face froze in a rictus smile. I'm sure whatever Naomi is working on can wait until after the toast? She laughed nervously. It's just little graphics after all. I felt a familiar sting at her dismissal of my work. But before I could respond, Mr. Blackwood spoke. On the contrary, I find creativity is the backbone of any successful business endeavor. His tone was polite but firm. Without vision and innovation, companies stagnate. Wouldn't you agree, Ms. Patel? For the first time that evening, someone was actually interested in hearing what I had to say. But as I opened my mouth to respond, Vanessa stepped between us. Mr. Blackwood, Marcus is really hoping to discuss the Richardson portfolio with you tonight. She linked her arm through his, clearly intent on steering him away from me. And I'm sure Naomi understands how important this night is for us. The message was clear. Don't get in the way of Marcus's career advancement. Don't embarrass us in front of his boss. Know your place. I forced a smile. Of course. Please, don't let me keep you. Mr. Blackwood's expression was inscrutable as Vanessa led him away, chattering about Marcus's recent accomplishments. I watched them go, feeling once again like the outsider looking in on Vanessa's perfect life. I retreated to the bar and ordered something stronger than champagne. As the scotch burned down my throat, I made a decision. I was done being the invisible stepsister, done letting Vanessa dictate my worth, done apologizing for my career, my choices, my existence. What I didn't realize was that the night was far from over, and the dynamics in that rooftop restaurant were about to shift dramatically in ways that would alter both my relationship with Vanessa and the trajectory of my career forever. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The guests were called to attention for the toast, and I lingered at the back of the crowd, nursing my scotch as Marcus's best friend delivered a speech peppered with inside jokes that made everyone but me laugh. Vanessa stood at the center of attention, radiant in her white dress, hanging onto Marcus's arm while simultaneously keeping Mr. Blackwood close by. I was contemplating making an early exit when my phone buzzed with an email notification. Normally, I wouldn't check my phone during an event, but anything was a welcome distraction at this point. The subject line made my heart stop. Urgent, lunar media contract concerns. I quickly opened it to find a message from Rebecca Moon herself, explaining that their legal team had found some concerning discrepancies in the contract I'd signed just yesterday. She needed to speak with me as soon as possible, preferably tonight. My dream contract, the one I'd been counting on to finally launch my career, was suddenly in jeopardy. I looked around frantically, trying to decide what to do. I couldn't just leave Vanessa's engagement party to take a business call, could I? But I also couldn't ignore this email. As the crowd erupted in applause at the conclusion of the toast, I slipped away to a quiet corner of the rooftop and dialed Rebecca's number with trembling fingers. Rebecca, it's Naomi. I just got your email. Naomi, I'm so sorry to bother you on a weekend, Rebecca said, her voice tense. But we've hit a major snag. Our biggest investor is threatening to pull out if we go ahead with the rebranding. They're extremely conservative and think your designs are too progressive. My stomach dropped. But your team loved the direction we discussed. You said it was exactly what Lunar needed to attract a younger demographic. I know, and I stand by that. But without this investor, there might not be a Lunar Media to rebrand. I need someone who can convince them that this new direction isn't just creative but financially sound. My mind raced. I wasn't a financial expert. I couldn't speak the language of ROI and market projections that would persuade a conservative investor. I understand if you need to find another designer, I said, my voice small. That's not what I want, Rebecca insisted. Your work is exceptional, Naomi. What I need is someone who can help me make the case to the investor. someone with financial credibility who can back up our creative direction. And suddenly, I had an idea so audacious it made me dizzy. What if I could get James Blackwood to look at the rebranding proposal? There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. James Blackwood of Horizon Investments? How on earth would you— "He's here," I said, scanning the crowd until I spotted his tall figure near the dessert table, looking politely bored as Vanessa introduced him to yet another guest. "At this engagement party. We've spoken briefly, and he actually mentioned knowing you. Naomi, if you could somehow get James to even glance at our situation—" Rebecca's voice had taken on a new energy. "His endorsement would silence any concerns from our investor. But why would he help? Us? I don't know," I admitted. "But I have to try." After ending the call, I took a deep breath and straightened my spine. This was about more than proving Vanessa wrong now. This was about saving my contract and potentially taking my career to a level I hadn't even dared to dream of. I made my way across the room, rehearsing what I would say. Before I could reach Mr. Blackwood, however, Vanessa intercepted me. "Where have you been?" she hissed, gripping my arm tightly. "Mom wanted a family photo and we couldn't find you." "I had an urgent work call," I said, trying to move past her. "Work? At my engagement party?" Her perfect features contorted with disbelief. "This is exactly what I was talking about, Naomi. You always find a way to make things about you." "That's not— And now you're hovering around Mr. Blackwood like some kind of desperate job seeker. Do you have any idea how that looks? How that reflects on me and Marcus?" Something inside me snapped. Years of diminishment, of being the afterthought, the footnote in Vanessa's glorious biography. It all came rushing to the surface. "Not everything is about you, Vanessa," I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. "I'm dealing with a professional crisis, and yes, I need to speak with Mr. Blackwood. Not to embarrass you, not to interfere with Marcus's promotion prospects, but because I have my own career that matters to me even if it doesn't matter to you." Vanessa's eyes widened in shock. I'd never stood up to her before. Then her expression hardened. "Fine," she said coldly. "Go ahead and make a fool of yourself, but don't come crying to me when you've ruined everything." She stormed off, leaving me standing there shaking slightly but feeling strangely liberated. I took another deep breath and approached Mr. Blackwood, who had managed to extricate himself from a conversation and was checking his watch. "Mr. Blackwood," I began, "I apologize for interrupting your evening, but I have a rather unusual request." He looked at me with that same inscrutable expression. "I'm listening, Ms. Patel." "The contract I mentioned with Lunar Media, it's in jeopardy because their primary investor doesn't see the financial value in the creative direction. I just learned this minutes ago." I met his gaze directly. "Rebecca Moon mentioned that your endorsement could make all the difference." His eyebrows rose slightly. "You spoke with Rebecca tonight?" I nodded. "She's expecting the investor's final decision by morning. I know this is incredibly presumptuous of me, but would you be willing to look at my portfolio and the rebranding proposal? Just for a few minutes?" For a long moment he said nothing, and I was certain I'd overstepped catastrophically. Then, to my astonishment, he smiled. A genuine smile that transformed his stern features. "Ms. Patel, do you always tackle professional crises with such directness?" "Only when I have nothing to lose," I admitted. He checked his watch again. "I was planning to make an exit in 5 minutes. These events aren't really my scene." He paused, considering. "There's a quiet lounge on the mezzanine level. I can spare 20 minutes to look at your work." Relief flooded through me. "Thank you. I can't tell you how much this means." "Don't thank me yet," he cautioned. "I'm notoriously hard to impress." As we turned to leave the main party area, I caught sight of Vanessa watching us from across the room. The look on her face was one I'd never seen before, a mixture of confusion, anger, and something that looked almost like fear. I had no idea then how right she was to be afraid. Because what happened in the next 20 minutes would change everything, not just for my career, but for Vanessa's perfectly planned future as well. What I couldn't have anticipated was that my stepsister's humiliation of me would lead to a series of events that would ultimately expose secrets she'd been desperate to keep hidden. Secrets that would come to light the moment her fiancé's boss took an interest in the stepsister she'd tried so hard to diminish. Mr. Blackwood and I found a secluded corner in the mezzanine lounge away from the buzz of the party. The space was elegantly furnished with low leather couches and ambient lighting that cast a warm glow over the polished wooden tables. I pulled out my tablet with trembling hands, acutely aware that one of the most powerful CEOs in the country was about to scrutinize my work. "So, tell me about this rebranding project," he said, settling into the couch across from me. His posture was relaxed, but his eyes remained sharp, missing nothing. I took a deep breath and launched into my presentation. Lunar Media has been using the same branding for 15 years. It worked well for them during the print era, but as they've shifted to digital content, they've struggled to connect with younger audiences. I swiped to show him the current logo, a literal crescent moon with dated typography. Their existing investor base loves the traditional approach because it's safe and familiar. It's safe and familiar. Mr. Blackwood nodded. Conservative investors usually prefer evolution over revolution. What are you proposing instead? I showed him my designs, a sleek, abstract series of curves that suggested a moon without being so literal, paired with a custom typeface that worked across all digital platforms. The color palette shifted from the current navy blue to a gradient of deep purples and midnight blues with accents of silver. My research showed that their target demographic responds to brands that feel authentic and cutting edge without trying too hard, I explained, gaining confidence as I spoke about the work I'd poured my heart into. The new visual identity allows them to maintain their legacy while positioning themselves as forward-thinking. Mr. Blackwood studied each slide carefully, occasionally asking pointed questions about my reasoning behind specific design choices. I couldn't read his expression, but he seemed genuinely engaged. "And what metrics are you using to measure success?" he asked. This was where most designers would falter, but I'd done my homework. I showed him the projected engagement rates, the A/B testing results from focus groups, and the comparative analysis of similar rebranding efforts in adjacent industries. After 20 minutes that felt like 20 hours, Mr. Blackwood leaned back. "You've clearly put significant thought into this, Ms. Patel." "Please call me Naomi," I said automatically. The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. "Naomi, then. Your work is impressive. Not just the aesthetic choices, but the strategic thinking behind them. Most creatives I encounter can't articulate the business case for their decisions." Relief washed over me. "Thank you. That means a lot coming from someone like you." The question now is how to convince a risk-averse investor that this creative direction won't alienate their existing audience while attracting new ones. He pulled out his phone. "I'll speak with Rebecca directly. We've worked together on several projects over the years." As he made the call, I sat in stunned silence. Was this really happening? Had my humiliating evening somehow transformed into a career-defining moment? Mr. Blackwood's conversation with Rebecca was brief but decisive. From his end, I gathered that he was not only endorsing my work, but offering to connect Lunar Media with some of his own contacts who specialized in measuring brand impact on financial performance. When he hung up, he turned to me with that same subtle smile. "Rebecca seems quite relieved. She said to tell you that the contract stands, and she'll be in touch tomorrow with the revised timeline." Tears pricked at my eyes. "I don't know how to thank you." "No need for that," he said, his voice gentler than I would have expected from someone with his reputation. "Talent deserves recognition, though I must say, I'm surprised you haven't been snatched up by a major agency yet." I laughed softly. "Let's just say I've been flying under the radar." "Well, Consider yourself on the radar now. He glanced at his watch. I should make an appearance downstairs again before I leave. Marcus is a promising analyst, and it would be poor form to disappear entirely from his engagement celebration. We stood and headed back toward the stairs. As we reached the landing, Mr. Blackwood paused. One more thing, Naomi. Horizon's marketing department has been pushing for a rebrand of our wealth management division for months. I've been resistant because I hadn't found the right creative direction. I'd be interested in seeing your thoughts on the matter. My heart nearly stopped. Are you offering me a job? Not precisely. More like an audition. If you're interested, have your people contact my office next week. He handed me his business card. Not a generic company card, but his personal, one with a direct number handwritten on the back. Before I could form a coherent response, we were interrupted by Vanessa's voice, higher and more brittle than usual. There you are. Everyone's been looking for you, Mr. Blackwood. The photographer wants some pictures with Marcus's colleagues. She glanced between us, suspicion evident in her narrowed eyes. Naomi, I didn't realize you'd monopolized our guest of honor for so long. That's entirely my fault, Mr. Blackwood said smoothly. Your stepsister was kind enough to discuss some business matters with me. Quite the talent you have in your family. Vanessa's laugh was strained. Oh, Naomi's always been creative, drawing little pictures and such since we were children. I felt the familiar sting of her dismissal, but this time it didn't cut as deep. Not when James Blackwood's business card was burning a hole in my clutch. Actually, Mr. Blackwood said, his tone casual but his words deliberate. We were discussing a potential collaboration with Horizon Investments. Naomi's strategic approach to visual communication is exactly what we've been looking for. Vanessa's perfect smile froze on her face. What? Ms. Patel might be working with us on rebranding our wealth management division, he continued, seemingly oblivious to Vanessa's shock. Assuming her schedule permits, of course. From what I understand, she's quite in demand these days. I couldn't help but savor the moment as Vanessa's expression cycled rapidly through disbelief, confusion, and calculation. For once, she was the one struggling to find her footing in a conversation. That's wonderful, she managed finally. But we really should get back to the party. Marcus is about to make another announcement. As we descended the stairs back to the main event space, Vanessa maneuvered herself between Mr. Blackwood and me, effectively cutting off any further conversation. I allowed myself to fall behind, content to watch her desperate attempts to regain control of the situation. The party had grown louder in our absence, the alcohol flowing freely and the music cranked up a notch. Marcus stood near the center of the room, tapping a spoon against his champagne flute to get everyone's attention. Thank you all for being here tonight, he began, once the crowd quieted. Vanessa and I are overwhelmed by your love and support. His eyes searched the room. Ah, there's my beautiful fiancé now. And Mr. Blackwood. Perfect timing, sir. Vanessa glided to Marcus's side, her composure mostly restored as she slipped into her role as the radiant bride-to-be. Mr. Blackwood made his way to the front as well, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. As most of you know, Marcus continued, I've been with Horizon Investments for 5 years now, and it's been the most rewarding professional experience of my life. He raised his glass toward Mr. Blackwood. Under your mentorship, sir, I've grown not just as an analyst, but as a leader. Mr. Blackwood nodded in acknowledgement, his expression neutral once more. What many of you don't know, Marcus said, is that Vanessa has played an instrumental role in my career as well. In fact, he laughed, looking adoringly at my stepsister. She's the reason I landed the Richardson account that's been making headlines. I noticed a subtle shift in Mr. Blackwood's posture, a slight narrowing of his eyes. Darling, Vanessa murmured, placing a hand on Marcus's arm. But he was too caught up in his speech to notice her warning. When we found out that old Richardson was looking for new investment management, Vanessa remembered that his granddaughter was in her yoga class. Marcus grinned, clearly proud of this connection. She worked her magic, got us an introduction outside the normal channels, and the rest is history. The crowd chuckled appreciatively, but I was focused on Mr. Blackwood, whose expression had gone completely still. In fact, Marcus continued, oblivious to the sudden tension, Vanessa's been my secret weapon on several accounts. Those client profiles she compiled from her society connections. Pure gold. A murmur ran through the room. I glanced at my father, who looked confused, and my stepmother, whose face had gone pale. Anyway, Marcus raised his glass higher, I just wanted to say that I'm not just gaining a wife. I'm gaining the best business partner a man could ask for. To Vanessa. To Vanessa, echoed the crowd, though the enthusiasm seemed muted by uncertainty, as people drank to the toast. I watched Mr. Blackwood set his untouched champagne on a nearby table. His expression was unreadable, but there was something in his eyes that hadn't been there before, a coldness that made me shiver despite the warm evening air. Vanessa must have sensed it too, because she was suddenly at his side, speaking rapidly, in a low voice. Whatever she was saying, Mr. Blackwood's response was brief and curt. Then he turned and made his way toward the exit, stopping only to shake a few hands and make polite goodbyes. Marcus appeared beside Vanessa, looking confused. Where's Mr. Blackwood going? I thought he was staying for dinner? Something came up, Vanessa said tightly. A work emergency. That's strange. He didn't mention anything to me. Marcus's brow furrowed. I should go say a proper goodbye. Let him go, Vanessa snapped, then immediately softened her tone. I mean, you know how he hates a fuss. Better to give him space when he's dealing with business matters. I stood frozen in place, trying to piece together what had just happened. Why had Mr. Blackwood's demeanor changed so dramatically? And why was Vanessa so anxious to prevent Marcus from speaking with him? Before I could contemplate further, my stepmother materialized at my elbow. What did you say to James Blackwood? She demanded in a harsh whisper. Nothing inappropriate, I replied, startled by her intensity. We were discussing a potential business opportunity. Business opportunity? She looked skeptical. With Horizon Investments? Yes, actually. He's interested in my design work for their wealth management division. My stepmother stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. You're serious. Completely. She glanced across the room at Vanessa, who was still deep in conversation with Marcus, gesturing animatedly. That's unexpected. Why? I challenged her. Because it's me? Because I'm just the stepdaughter who does little drawings. Had the grace to look slightly ashamed. Naomi, you know that's not... It's exactly what you all think, I said, surprised by my own boldness. The events of the evening had unlocked something in me, a willingness to speak my truth after years of swallowing it. But it doesn't matter anymore. For once, someone is judging me on my work, not on how I compare to Vanessa. My stepmother opened her mouth to respond, but was interrupted by a commotion near the entrance. We both turned to see Marcus hurrying toward the exit, his face flushed with confusion and alarm. What's happening? I asked, no one in particular. My father appeared beside us, looking worried. Something about Mr. Blackwood calling an emergency meeting at the office. Marcus just got a text. On a Saturday night? My stepmother's voice rose, with concern. As if on cue, Vanessa rushed over to us, her perfect composure finally cracking. This is a disaster, she hissed. Absolute disaster. What's wrong? I asked, genuinely concerned despite our fraught relationship. She rounded on me, eyes blazing. This is your fault. What did you say to him up there? Nothing about you, I said truthfully. We were discussing my work. Bullshit, she spat, then immediately caught herself, glancing around to ensure no guests had heard her outburst. Lowering her voice, she continued, "You've always been jealous of me, always looking for ways to undermine me." "Vanessa," my father interjected, "that's enough. I'm sure Naomi had nothing to do with whatever's happening." "Oh, please," Vanessa scoffed. "She disappears with Marcus's boss for half an hour, and suddenly he's calling emergency meetings? That's not a coincidence." My stepmother placed a calming hand on Vanessa's arm. "Darling, you're overreacting. I'm sure it's just a work matter. These finance types are always dealing with some crisis or another." But I could see the genuine fear behind Vanessa's anger, and it confused me. What could she possibly be afraid of? Marcus's toast had been a bit unorthodox, mentioning how she'd helped with his business connections, but surely that wasn't cause for such panic? Unless a memory surfaced, a casual comment Mr. Blackwood had made during our conversation upstairs. Something about ethical boundaries in business relationships. At the time, I'd assumed he was making a general observation, but now I wondered if there was more to it. Before I could process this thought, Marcus returned, his face ashen. "I have to go to the office," he said to Vanessa. "Mr. Blackwood wants the entire Richardson team there immediately." "On our engagement night?" Vanessa's voice rose in disbelief. "Can't it wait until Monday?" Marcus ran a hand through his hair, clearly distressed. "You don't understand. He's called in the compliance department and legal counsel. Something about reviewing the acquisition process for all recent accounts." The blood drained from Vanessa's face. What exactly did he say? Just that there are concerns about possible breaches of confidentiality and procurement protocols. Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper. "Vanessa, he specifically mentioned the client profiles you helped with." My stepmother gasped softly beside. "Me?" "It's standard procedure," Vanessa said quickly, though her voice lacked conviction. "They're just being thorough." "On a Saturday night? With legal present?" Marcus shook his head. "This isn't standard anything, Vanessa. I need to know exactly what was in those profiles you gave me. Where did you get that information?" Vanessa's eyes darted around the room, clearly aware that they were drawing attention. "We'll discuss this later," she hissed. "Go to your meeting. I'll handle things here." As Marcus left, the party continued around us, most guests oblivious to the drama unfolding in our little corner. But our family stood in tense silence, the implications of what we'd just heard settling over us like a heavy cloud. "What have you done?" my stepmother finally whispered to Vanessa. My stepsister's face hardened. Nothing that any smart woman wouldn't do to help her fiancé succeed. I just leveraged my social connections. By compiling confidential client profiles? I couldn't help but ask. "Vanessa, that sounds like what, Naomi?" she challenged, her voice low and dangerous. "Like what exactly? Please enlighten us with your vast knowledge of investment banking regulations." I backed down, not because I was intimidated, but because I genuinely didn't understand the full implications of what she'd done. But clearly Mr. Blackwood did. "We need to control the damage," my stepmother said decisively. "Your father has connections at Horizon. We can smooth this over." My father looked uncomfortable. "If there's been an ethical breach, Ellen, I'm not sure my connections will help." "It wasn't an ethical breach," Vanessa insisted. "I just shared some insights about people I happen to know. People share information at social events all the time." But I could see the doubt in her eyes. Whatever she had done went beyond casual. Networking, and now it had attracted the attention of the CEO himself. As the family huddled together, strategizing in urgent whispers, I found myself drifting away from their circle. This wasn't my crisis. For once, I wasn't the one being judged or found wanting. I made my way to the bar, ordered another scotch, and watched the party continue around me. Guests were starting to notice the absence of both Marcus and Mr. Blackwood, and curious glances were being cast in our direction. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Ms. Patel. Apologies for the abrupt departure. Our conversation about creative direction was enlightening. My office will contact you Monday regarding the potential project we discussed. JB. I stared at the message in disbelief. Despite whatever storm was brewing at Horizon Investments, James Blackwood had taken the time to ensure our business connection remained intact. As I glanced up from my phone, I caught Vanessa watching me from across the room. The look in her eyes was one I'd never seen before, a mixture of suspicion, fear, and something that looked almost like respect. For the first time in our complicated history, the power dynamic between us had shifted. She had spent years diminishing me, making me feel small and inconsequential compared to her perfect life. Now, as her carefully constructed facade began to crack, I found that I took no pleasure in her distress. Instead, I felt a strange sense of freedom. My worth wasn't defined by Vanessa's opinion of me or by how I measured up against her accomplishments. It was defined by my work, my talent, and my integrity, qualities that would remain long after tonight's drama had faded. I raised my glass in a small, private toast to myself. Whatever tomorrow brought, for me, for Vanessa, for all of us, I would face it on my own terms. What I didn't realize then was that tomorrow would bring revelations none of us were prepared for. Revelations that would permanently alter the foundation of our family and force us all to confront uncomfortable truths we'd spent years avoiding. I barely slept that night. After leaving the engagement party, slipping out quietly while Vanessa was busy damage controlling with her parents, I returned to my apartment and spent hours researching financial regulations and compliance rules for investment firms. The more I read, the more I understood the gravity of what Marcus had inadvertently revealed. Horizon Investments, like all major financial institutions, operated under strict regulations about how client information could be obtained and used. If Vanessa had indeed compiled unauthorized profiles on potential clients through her social connections, information that Marcus then used to secure accounts, they could both be in serious trouble. Marcus for using the information, but Vanessa, potentially for corporate espionage. By Sunday morning, my phone was buzzing nonstop with texts from my father. What exactly did you discuss with James Blackwood? Vanessa is devastated. Marcus was at the office until 3 a.m. Can you please call me back? Your stepmother is beside herself. I ignored them all. For years, I'd been at their beck and call, always expected to accommodate Vanessa's feelings, to make myself smaller so she could shine brighter. Not anymore. Instead, I focused on preparing for my Monday meeting with Horizon Investments. Mr. Blackwood's assistant had emailed me early, Sunday morning, to schedule a formal appointment. Whatever chaos was unfolding in the compliance department, he was still interested in my work. Around noon, my doorbell rang. I peered through the peephole, expecting to see my father. Instead, Vanessa stood in the hallway, looking nothing like her usual polished self. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, her face bare of makeup, and her eyes red-rimmed from crying or lack of sleep. Probably both. I hesitated before opening the door. Our last interaction had been hostile, with her blaming me for whatever trouble she was in. But curiosity won out. Vanessa, I said neutrally. This is unexpected. She didn't wait for an invitation, pushing past me into my apartment. We need to talk. I closed the door and turned to face her. About? Don't play dumb, Naomi. About James Blackwood. About last night. About whatever you said to him that made him launch an internal investigation that could destroy Marcus's career. I crossed my arms. I didn't say anything about you or Marcus. To Mr. Blackwood. We discussed my design work and a potential project with Horizon. That's it. She paced my small living room, agitated. Then why? Why would he suddenly call an emergency compliance meeting right after speaking with you? Maybe because of what Marcus said in his toast, about how you gave him client profiles from your society connections? I kept my voice level. Did you ever consider that maybe I had nothing to do with it? Vanessa stopped pacing and sank onto my couch, looking deflated. Marcus is such an idiot sometimes. He thought he was complimenting me. He had no idea what he was revealing. I sat in the armchair across from her. What exactly did you do, Vanessa? She looked up at me, and for the first time in our relationship, I saw vulnerability in her eyes. I just wanted to help him. Do you know how hard it is to get ahead at a place like Horizon? Everyone comes from Ivy League schools with family connections. Marcus is brilliant, but he doesn't have the pedigree the others have. So you gave him insider information on potential clients? It wasn't like that, she insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. I'm in the same social circles as many of these people. I hear things. Investment preferences, family situations that affect their financial decisions, which firms they're unhappy with. And you compiled this information into profiles for Marcus to use. She nodded slowly. At first it was just casual mentions. Oh, by the way, so-and-so mentioned they're looking for a new investment manager. But then Marcus started getting accounts based on those tips, and it became more systematic. I stared at her in disbelief. Vanessa, I know what it is, she snapped, then immediately deflated again. I know, but you don't understand the pressure. Every time Marcus landed a new account, we could breathe a little easier. His bonus would be bigger, we could afford a better apartment, a nicer wedding. She looked around my modest living space. Not everyone is content with this. The familiar sting of her condescension brought me back to reality. Even now, in the midst of a crisis of her own making, she couldn't resist belittling my life. What do you want from me, Vanessa? I asked tiredly. I need you to talk to Blackwood. Tell him it was all a misunderstanding. I laughed incredulously. You can't be serious. He likes you, she pressed. He respects you, God knows why. If you could just put in a good word for Marcus, explain that he had no idea where the information came from. So you want me to lie? To James Blackwood, the CEO who's considering hiring me? I shook my head. Even if I wanted to help you, which I'm not sure I do, I won't jeopardize my own integrity and career prospects. Of course not, she said bitterly. Why would you help family when your precious career is at stake? Family? I echoed. Is that what we are, Vanessa? Because for as long as I can remember, you've treated me like an inconvenience. A footnote in your perfect life story. She had the grace to look slightly ashamed. That's not fair. We were just different, that's all. You were always so artsy, so in your own world. And you were always so quick to remind me that my world wasn't as important as yours. I leaned forward. Do you have any idea how it feels to be constantly diminished? To have your passions and achievements dismissed as little drawings or computer doodles? I didn't mean... Yes, you did. My voice was steady now. Years of pent-up feelings finally finding release. You've always meant it. And now that you're in trouble, suddenly I'm family. And my connection to Blackwood is valuable to you. Vanessa's face crumpled. I don't know what to do, Naomi. Marcus is being questioned by compliance officers and lawyers. He could lose his job. We could lose everything. Despite myself, I felt a twinge of sympathy. For all her faults, Vanessa's distress was genuine. What exactly are they investigating? What's the worst-case scenario? She twisted her engagement ring nervously. They're reviewing all of Marcus's accounts from the past 2 years, the ones I helped with. If they determine he used non-public information to secure those clients, it could be considered a form of insider trading or corporate espionage. Her voice dropped to a whisper. There could be legal consequences, not just job loss. The severity of the situation finally hit me. This wasn't just about Vanessa's wounded pride or Marcus's career. There could be actual legal ramifications. Have you spoken with a lawyer? I asked. She nodded miserably. Dad called his attorney friend this morning. He says the best approach is for Marcus to claim ignorance, that he had no idea the information might have been obtained improperly, and for me to take responsibility. And will you? Her eyes met mine, filled with conflict. I don't know. I should. It was my doing, after all. But I'm terrified, Naomi. This isn't just about the engagement or our wedding plans. This could follow me forever. For the first time, I saw my stepsister clearly, not as the golden child who could do no wrong, but as a deeply flawed person who had made a serious mistake out of some misguided attempt to secure her future. In an odd way, it made her more human to me than she'd ever been before. I can't talk to Mr. Blackwood on your behalf, I said finally. That would be inappropriate and potentially harmful to my own professional relationship with him, but I hesitated, weighing my next words carefully. I do have a meeting at Horizon tomorrow. If there's an opportunity to better understand what's happening without compromising my integrity, I'll take it. It wasn't much, but it was all I could offer. Vanessa nodded, seeming to understand that this was as far as I was willing to go. Thank you, she said quietly. And Naomi? I'm sorry for how I've treated you. I never realized that I had actual talent, that my work might be valued by someone like James Blackwood. I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. No, she said, surprising me. I never realized how much I was hurting you. I always saw you as so self-contained, like you didn't care what anyone thought. I laughed softly. That was just self-preservation, Vanessa. Of course I cared. She stood to leave, pausing at the door. For what it's worth, I was impressed. Last night, watching you with Blackwood, you seemed so confident, so in your element. A sad smile crossed her face. I've never felt that way about anything except maybe being the center of attention. After she left, I sat in my apartment for a long time, processing our conversation. For years, I'd seen Vanessa as my nemesis, the favored daughter who had everything I didn't. But perhaps she had her own insecurities, her own desperate need to prove her worth, just manifested differently than mine. The next morning, I dressed carefully for my meeting at Horizon Investments, a tailored charcoal pantsuit that projected confidence without being flashy, my portfolio meticulously organized in a leather folio. Whatever personal drama was unfolding with Vanessa and Marcus, this was still a professional opportunity I couldn't afford to squander. Horizon's offices occupied the top 10 floors of a gleaming downtown skyscraper. The reception area on the 45th floor featured floor-to-ceiling windows with panoramic views of the city and minimalist furnishings that managed to convey both wealth and restraint. Ms. Patel? A polished young woman approached me. Mr. Blackwood is ready to see you. Please follow me. Instead of leading me to a conference room as I'd expected, she escorted me directly to the CEO's corner office. The space was impressive, but not ostentatious. Leather furniture, contemporary art on the walls, and a massive desk of polished walnut. James Blackwood rose to greet me, extending his hand. Ms. Patel, thank you for coming on such short notice. Thank you for the opportunity, I replied, shaking his hand firmly. He gestured for me to take a seat across from his desk. I imagine you've had an interesting Sunday. The question caught me off guard. Yes, you could say that. Your stepsister came to see you, I presume? I hesitated, unsure how much to share. She did. Mr. Blackwood nodded as if this confirmed something for him. I won't put you in an awkward position, Ms. Patel. Family matters are complicated enough without outside interference. I appreciate that, I said carefully. But I want to be clear that I'm here purely to discuss the potential rebranding project. Whatever is happening with Marcus or Vanessa is a separate matter entirely, he finished for me. I respect your professional boundaries, and I admire your integrity. Relief washed over me. He understood. Now, he continued, pulling out a folder, let's discuss the Wealth Management Division rebrand. I've reviewed your portfolio more thoroughly, and I'm impressed with your strategic approach. Our current branding is, he grimaced slightly, dated. We need a fresh perspective that maintains our reputation for stability while appealing to younger high-net-worth individuals. For the next hour, we discussed his vision for the division, the key demographics they were targeting, and the competitive landscape. I took detailed notes, occasionally offering preliminary thoughts that he engaged with thoughtfully. As our meeting wound down, Mr. Blackwood leaned back in his chair. I'd like to offer you the project, Ms. Patel, on a contract basis initially, with the potential for more work if we're both satisfied with the results. My heart leapt. This was exactly the kind of high-profile client that could elevate my freelance business to the next level. I'm honored, Mr. Blackwood. I'd be delighted to accept. Excellent. My assistant will send over the standard contract for your review. He paused, his expression becoming more serious. There is one other matter I'd like to discuss with you, if you'll permit me. I tensed slightly. Of course. I understand that. Marcus Bennett is engaged to your stepsister. Yes, I confirmed cautiously. You should know that Mr. Bennett is currently under internal review for some concerning procurement practices. Nothing has been decided yet, but the situation is serious. I nodded slowly. I gathered as much from Vanessa. What you may not know is that this morning, Mr. Bennett provided a full statement to our compliance team. Mr. Blackwood's eyes held mine steadily. He admitted to using information that your stepsister provided to secure several major accounts, but he maintains that he believed the information came from public sources or casual social interactions. He claims he had no knowledge that she was systematically gathering confidential details. My breath caught. And do you believe him? Mr. Blackwood considered this for a moment. I believe he's a talented analyst who made poor choices. Whether those choices were naive or calculated is still being determined. And Vanessa's role in all this? Ms. Price is not an employee of Horizon Investments, so she falls outside our internal disciplinary procedures. His tone was measured. However, depending on the nature of the information she obtained and how she obtained it, there could be legal questions. The implication hung heavy in the air between us. Mr. Blackwood, I said finally, I want to be absolutely clear that I had no knowledge of any of this until Marcus's toast on Saturday night. My relationship with my stepsister is complicated, but I would never have condoned anything unethical. I never thought otherwise, Ms. Patel. His expression softened, slightly. Your work and your conduct speak for themselves. That's why I'm comfortable proceeding with our professional relationship regardless of what happens with Mr. Bennett or your stepsister. As I prepared to leave, he added, one final thing. The board is meeting tomorrow to decide Mr. Bennett's fate. If he is terminated, it will be for cause, and that could have significant repercussions for his career in finance. I understand, I said quietly. However, he continued, there is an alternative path being considered. If Mr. Bennett agrees to certain conditions, including a probationary period and ethics training, he might be able to remain with the firm in a reduced capacity. I looked at him questioningly. Why are you telling me this? Because decisions made in the next 24 hours will affect not just Mr. Bennett's career, but your stepsister's future as well. And despite the complex dynamics at play, I suspect you care about that more than you might admit. As I rode the elevator down to the lobby, my mind was racing. Mr. Blackwood had essentially given me inside information, not about financial matters, but about Marcus's precarious position and the decision that would be made tomorrow. The question was, what should I do with it? By the time I reached my apartment, I had my answer. I called Vanessa. "Can you meet me for coffee?" I asked when she answered. "There's something important we need to discuss." An hour later, we sat across from each other at a quiet cafe, steaming. Mugs between us like a neutral zone in contested territory. "How was your meeting?" she asked, her eyes anxious. "Good. I got the contract." I took a deep breath. "But that's not why I asked you here." I told her everything Mr. Blackwood had shared with me about Marcus's statement, the board meeting tomorrow, and the two possible outcomes. So they might not fire him? Hope flickered in her eyes. If he agrees to their conditions, which will likely include a demotion and loss of the accounts in question. I hesitated. "But Vanessa, there's still the question of your involvement. Even if Horizon doesn't pursue anything against you legally, this kind of scandal has a way of following people." She stared into her coffee. "What do you think I should do?" The fact that she was asking my advice, that the dynamic between us had shifted so dramatically in just 2 days, wasn't lost on me. "I think you need to take responsibility," I said gently. "Not just to save Marcus's career, but for yourself. This isn't who you are, Vanessa. Using people's confidences against them, gathering private information for personal gain, that's not the sister I grew up with." "Stepsister," she corrected automatically, then gave a weak laugh. "Sorry, old habits." "The point is," I continued, "you've always been ambitious and driven, but not dishonest. Somewhere along the way, you lost sight of that." She nodded slowly. "I got caught up in it all. The lifestyle, the status, being Marcus Bennett's fiancé, future wife of a Horizon executive." She twisted her engagement ring. "Do you know what the worst part is? I don't even know if I love him anymore. I just love what he represents." Her honesty surprised me. "Then maybe this is an opportunity, not just to make things right professionally, but personally too." "What do you mean?" "Maybe it's time to figure out who you are outside of all the external validations, outside of being the perfect daughter, the perfect fiancé, the woman with the perfect life." I reached across the table and took her hand. "Because let me tell you, as someone who's been forced to define herself outside of those things, it's terrifying, but it's also incredibly freeing." Tears welled in her eyes. "When did you get so wise, Naomi?" "Around the same time you started being honest with yourself," I replied with a small smile. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of changes for our family. Marcus kept his job at Horizon, though with a significant demotion and under strict supervision. Vanessa wrote a formal letter to the board, taking full responsibility for gathering the client information, explaining her methods, and apologizing for her actions. While there were no legal charges filed, she and Marcus mutually decided to postpone their wedding indefinitely. To everyone's surprise, especially mine, Vanessa also moved out of her luxury apartment and took a small place in my building. "I need to figure out who I am when I'm not trying to impress everyone," she explained when I helped her move in. As for me, my rebranding project for Horizon's wealth management division was unveiled to critical acclaim in the industry press. Mr. Blackwood, James, as he eventually insisted I call him, became not just a client, but a mentor, introducing me to his extensive network and recommending my services to other companies in his orbit. 6 months after that fateful engagement party, Vanessa and I sat on my balcony, sharing a bottle of wine as the sun set over the city. "I got a job offer today," she announced. "A real one based on my actual qualifications." "That's wonderful," I raised my glass to toast her. "Where?" "A small PR firm downtown. The salary is about a third of what Marcus made, but it's honest work." She took a sip of wine. "I never thought I'd say this, but I'm actually excited about starting from the bottom and earning my way up." "I'm proud of you," I said, and I meant it. The Vanessa of a year ago would never have considered a position that didn't come with immediate status and recognition. What about you? How's the Meridian Bank proposal coming along? Almost finished. If I land it, I might need to actually hire an assistant. I grinned. The success of the Horizon project had led to a steady stream of high-profile clients, transforming my freelance business into a genuine boutique design firm. Look at us, Vanessa mused. Who would have thought we'd end up here? Not me, I admitted. But I'm glad we did, she raised her glass. To new beginnings. And to sisters, not step, just sisters, who finally figured out how to see each other clearly. I clinked my glass against hers. To sisters. As the sky deepened to indigo, I reflected on how quickly life could change, how a single evening, a chance encounter, an unexpected ally could alter everything. 6 months ago, I had stood in front of my mirror in that emerald dress, bracing myself for another night of feeling invisible and inadequate in Vanessa's shadow. Now, I was building a career I was proud of, repairing a relationship I had thought beyond salvation, and discovering a confidence in myself that no one, not even Vanessa, could diminish. Sometimes, the most unexpected humiliations lead to the most profound transformations. And sometimes, the moment when someone walks in, someone who sees you clearly when others have only looked past you, is the moment your real story begins. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.